open up a new Colab notebook and title this one Combining Strings. So this is sort of a rich topic in Python. The idea here is that you have multiple strings, but you want to combine them to express them as one. So let's go ahead and define a couple of variables. How about a greeting? You can pick a greeting of your choice. I'll choose hola, which means hello in Spanish, and a name. Feel free to pick the name of your choice. I'm going to choose Bushra. Okay, so the idea is we want to greet the name. So go ahead and press Shift-Enter to store your variables. Now, there's some different ways to combine strings. The first one we're going to look at is called string concatenation. Concatenation basically means combining, and believe it or not, the plus operator works. So you can put in the word greeting, and then you can put the plus sign along with name, okay? So go ahead and do that, and then press Shift-Enter to see what the output is. Okay, we get an output. It's not ideal because there's no space in the middle, but it actually does what it should, which is it combines the two strings into one. Now, let's next look at something called string interpolation, which is used with the print function. And the idea here is that you can print out variables, okay, like greeting, comma, with other, strings or variables. Okay, so these are two variables. So press Shift-Enter on this one, and you can see you get something similar but a little different. The space here is included. So what we're going to do now is look at a couple of workarounds before we look at a better solution. So how might we make this work? Well, you can concatenate until your heart's content. So you could concatenate a space, and that would be a string with the sort of the space bar to give it a space. And then you could include the name, and then, to be grammatically correct, perhaps a period at the end. And so now with all of these pluses, if you press Shift-Enter, you get the desired sentence. And then with the string interpolation option, if you put that in there, you can certainly put another comma and then add a string, right, which is the period. And so now if you press Shift-Enter, you get sort of something kind of nice, but note that there's an extra space after the period. So there is another option that I, and I think many others, strongly prefer at this point, and it's called an F string. So an F string is a little more recent in Python, and you actually get it by typing in sensibly the keyword F, but first let's get a comment up, so this is going to show an F string. And so if you put an F in there, and then a quotation mark, okay, the F changes colors, and now you can put any string inside of there, but the advantage is when you're going to use variables. So for instance, if we want to have our greeting, and then the spaces in the F string are actual spaces. So if I put a space here, I will get a space in between greeting and name. Note the syntax is to use these curly brackets whenever there's a variable inside of the F string. And then you could add whatever you want, like say a period at the end. And so now if you press Shift-Enter, you can see it's ideally comes out as is. Now F strings are really nice, and just to show you another example, let's say that there's a score in a test, and the score is 95. Okay, and we want to include this in an F string. Maybe this is what the person earned. So I can write an F string and put the quote up there, and you can just start writing. So I could say, if I want to use the variable like the name, and then I can add information, scored, and then I put the word score on the test this is made up. Okay, so you can see how the F strings are really nice because you can sort of just write your string, and whenever you want to include a variable, you just include it in the brackets. Okay, now F strings you can show as is. This could be like sort of a comment that you make. Right, you can store it, and then you can print it out. You can print out the comment, and you can see it's a nice, clean sentence. So F strings are really nice, and I do want to conclude with one maybe other thing that hasn't come up yet. So this string with the space in it is sort of interesting, right? You can see that a string with a space in it, if you look at the length of it using our global length function, has one character, but there's something called the empty string. Okay, and so the empty string actually doesn't take up any space, but it's sort of stored as a string. Okay, that's the empty string. And then to sort of like check its length, right? It doesn't have any length. And if you wanted to print it out, obviously, if you show the variable here, it's just going to show it to you. But if you print it out, it's not going to show you anything. And so there are sort of interesting cases in programming where an empty string could be useful. So that's a nice to pick up as well. And I can tell you that of all the different ways of combining strings, I actually do use all of them for different reasons, but the most common is the F string. I would say probably then concatenation, because sometimes you just want to quickly add something to a string, and then the print interpolation can be useful at times as well.